Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. It's a pose that you've definitely done on your yoga mat plenty of times, whatever kind of style of yoga you practice. But is it a pose that you enjoy, or is it one that you, every time you come into it, you sort of think, am I actually getting this right? Am I doing this as well as I could be? I know that that's certainly where I was with the pose for a long time. So I've come up with 3 little tweaks that might help you figure out your downward dog a little bit better. Tip number 1 is all about hand placement on the mat. Now, often I see people in classes placing their hands shoulder width apart, or what they think is shoulder width apart, and it ends up being about here. And when they then come into downward dog, you might start to feel a bit of tightness, a bit of tension right up in here in the shoulders. It might feel quite difficult to kind of lift into it. So what I always advise is going a tiny bit wider. And what you can also play around with is very slightly opening out, rotating out with your hands. So you might try, instead of having middle fingers parallel and facing the top of the mat, you might try opening out a little so it's your index fingers that are facing the top of the mat and are parallel. I always advise trying to press down through the center of your palms, your knuckles, and your fingertips. Not just resting on the wrists, but actually using every part of your hand and pressing it firmly into the yoga mat. Try that, see how it feels, figure out where your hands are going to be best placed on the mat. Tip number 2 is bend your knees a little bit and stay up on your tiptoes. Now, if we're trying to recreate the downward dogs that we've seen that look really perfect, we often go straight into legs straight, heels reaching down. But as you can see here, that can cause the back to round quite a lot. And really what we're looking to gain out of downward dog is stretching out the spine, opening up through the shoulders, and then the stretch along the backs of the legs is still going to happen even if the knees are slightly bent. So try coming into it this way, from tabletop position, hands and knees. Keep a little bend in your knees as you start to lift into downward dog. Push through your hands and come right up onto your tiptoes, keeping the knees as bent as you can. So focus on your hips lifting high, your spine staying long and straight, and just take a few breaths from there. And then you can try that sort of slow pedaling of the feet and see if that helps you to get a little more length through the legs. But keep that bend in your knees and focus on lengthening out the spine. My 3rd and final tip, and this is a bit of a pro tip, I would say, you need to know your body quite well to figure this out. So this is a bit more for those of us who have been practicing for a while. For most people, when they come into downward dog, rounding of the back is what they might experience, and they've struggled to get that lovely straight line through the spine. So in your case, if that's you, if you fall into that camp, and if you're not quite sure, you could also just take a quick video, set your phone up, do a couple of downward dogs and see if you're getting a little bit of rounding through your upper back. So if that is you, then what I want you to focus on is working with tip number 2. So lift onto the tiptoes, bend the knees a little bit, push through your hands, and here's the key, reach your chest towards your thighs. So think about pressing your chest back towards your thighs to really get that big stretch through the back of the body. However, if you are in the second camp of people, which is those of us who are quite overly mobile in the shoulders and in the spine, if you've got a bit of hypermobility, for example, then you probably find the opposite. Instead of your back rounding a little bit, you might even get almost a bit too much extension in the spine, a bit of concaving. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing, as long as your shoulders feel safe where they are and they're not overextending as well. But to bring a bit more strength and stability and control into your downward dog, if you are very, very mobile, try to hug your lower rib cage in and see if you can feel as you do that a little bit more core activation, a little bit more stability through your center. Spend some time with this, have a play around with all of these different tips. I really recommend filming yourself, watching, have a look at how it looks, because sometimes how it looks is a little different to how it feels. Maybe you're not quite where you want to be. If you have any questions, if any of this is unclear, please leave me a comment and I will get back to you. And if you like videos like this, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We are getting very close to that 10K subscriber mark, which feels very big for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.